Hello, Internet. I am. Yeah.
I'm super. Thanks for asking.
We are super. We're the Cinema Joes. No, we're the Cinema Joes. I am Justin. I'm here with my two buddies, Casey and Noah.
Hello.
We are currently going to be discussing our last film in the alternative superhero films marathon.
It's been a long journey.
It's been quite a harrowing journey. And today we have a film from someone you might know. His name is James Gunn. He's a writer-director. Believe it or not, started as a screenwriter for the Scooby-Doo movies, the live-action films.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Nice little bit of trivia.
Rags to riches.
I couldn't believe in Guardians they never said, from the writer of Scooby-Doo, and Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed, Guardians of the Galaxy. But yeah, so we have this film that James Gunn did after the Scooby-Doo movies, but before his current release, Guardians of the Galaxy, which is now officially making more money than God. This film that we're discussing...
Still not more than J.K. Rowling, though. Let's be
sure. No. We're not going to be able to touch her.
Let's not go crazy here.
So this film is from 2010. It's our most recent film. It's called Super, and it stars Rainn Wilson.
Crime.
Yes, thank you. That is the tagline. Stars Rainn Wilson as Frank Darbo. He's a kind of hapless fry cook who basically has had quite a punishing life, I guess you'd say. He seems to have been abused or used as a doormat for most of his life. And, the final straw comes when his wife, who is addicted to drugs, basically is somewhat coerced, maybe kidnapped by this strip club owner / drug dealer named Jacques, played by none other than Kevin Bacon.
Oh my god.
And he decides he's not going to take it anymore. He dresses up, becomes the Crimson Bolt, thanks to some divine intervention from Nathan Fillion. And he teams up with Ellen Page as Libby, who becomes his sidekick Bolty, and they decide they're gonna try to fight some crime. And it's a lot. That sounds kind of maybe a little charming, but it's pretty violent. It's pretty gritty.
Let's throw the spoiler warning up now.
Yeah, we'll put a spoiler. I'd say it's not necessarily. I don't know if this movie is about major revelations necessarily, but we might as well put it up there. So guys, in this movie, I think even more so than anyone's, there's more of a sense of realism to a lot of this, even though there are spurts of more comic book style moments. And there's a lot. I think this is probably the most violent movie we've seen. Does that seem pretty accurate to say?
Certainly the most gruesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have this...
in a lot of ways, it's kind of... It's a little bit more effective at being what KickAss tried to be, because you mentioned earlier that KickAss came out the same year.
Yeah.
It's trying to be this very twisted play on expectations of what you expect a superhero or a masked hero movie to be like. Because a lot of people said it before, KickAss tried to do that, but kind of falls into, the usual tropes by the end.
Yeah.
This movie sticks pretty solidly to doing whatever you don't really expect it to do. So it's much more, it's definitely much more out there in terms of what it's trying to do than like Kick-Ass really managed to be. Which could explain why Kick-Ass was a big hit and not a lot of people know about this movie.
You know what?
Yeah.
I was just looking at the numbers. Apparently, I had a 2.5 million and only grossed 300,000.
Wow.
Okay. Did you hear Kayla in the background?
Yeah.
Wow.
She did not like this movie. I did, but
I can see. It's funny because I feel like I'm still wrestling with this movie maybe more so than Unbreakable.
Mm-hmm.
But I could understand someone not liking it because there's so many unpleasant and even I'd say maybe unwatchable moments to this
hard
movie.
To watch.
But I guess that's my question. Do you think like this is maybe a story about a guy who does want to be a superhero but is really kind of maybe not the best person to assume this kind of identity. And I don't just mean his lack of powers. Psychologically, this is probably not someone who should be pursuing this course of action.
And yet he's so much more stable than Ellen Page's character.
Yes.
It was worth seeing this movie just to watch Ellen Page. lose all of her shit.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. Yeah, it's definitely. I get the sense James Gunn just being like, all right, give me more, give me more, give me more.
Yeah.
You know?
I really think this film is more of a character study for those types of person. They're exaggerated types of people, but they are types of people that some people can relate to. So I think it's an interesting character study on those,
Well, I have to say, the two aspects of the movie that I really, really liked. I really liked the beginning because it does a very effective job of making you feel for Frank. And the guy, what's his name again, Justin? The actor.
The actor is Rainn Wilson.
And this is the guy from The Office, right?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. His performance, I think, is really, really good.
Yeah.
Because he never comes across as anything other than totally genuine. Like Bruce Willis in Unbreakable, but even more downplayed. I totally bought him as like a legit human being. And the beginning of the movie really draws you in to make you feel for him.
Except when he's playing the character of the Crimson Bolt. Then he's less subtle.
I think the movie starts to move a little,
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying.
His actions, which
right.
I think.
No, that's what I'm saying. The beginning does a really good job, or it did a really good job of drawing me in and making me feel really bad for him and want to see what happens. Mm-hmm. And I really, really liked the ending, I liked what the ending was going for. I liked the idea of the ending where, he succeeds. The idea, first off, of the hero succeeding and rescuing the girl, but not for himself, ultimately, I thought was an interesting idea.
I love that. I love that.
And I like the idea of him, actually coming to a sense of self-fulfillment like that. So, I thought the beginning was great. I thought the ending was at least a really, really good idea. I think the problem comes into what they bring in the middle and how they try to tie the beginning and the end together. And I don't think it works all the way. Like, they could have, if James had maybe thought stuff through a little bit to connect the dots in a way that made more sense.
Yeah, I for me, as I was watching it, I was kind of like, it doesn't hold together as well as it should, but there are enough things that I was like, that I thought were interesting enough, especially, the idea of a superhero and really why do we, here I think this is exploring, why do we want to become superheroes? And this is a character, from the get-go, you can see he's had a very, he's had a, kind of a terrible life, to the point, I think, where he starts thinking in binaries. Good versus evil. He sees his actions, at least initially, as the Crimson Bolt, as always being for the greater good. I think the movie makes it clear that these are not very helpful things. Especially, the first crime, he's beating up a guy who's just dealing weed, and this is. I guess I thought that was an interesting enough question to ask: is why do we want to become superheroes? And the reason I think he really uses the superhero persona as an outlet for a lot of his pain, for what he feels is due to him. I think you can definitely see in that last scene where he kills Kevin Bacon's character, it really becomes clear where he says, these are things you do not do. You do not molest children. You do not deal drugs. You do not, kidnap another man's wife.
Yeah.
I think that to me was, I think he really nailed that scene as well. And I'm gonna be honest with you, this might be my favorite performance. I mean, when we get into some of the awards, I think later, this has a good chance, I think, of being like the one performance from a leading superhero, in quotes, that sticks with me. Mm-hmm. I think he can really sell the crap out of it.
My favorite, not part of the movie, but I guess lines. I liked a lot of the lines in this movie, especially in context of what we're trying to do here with the alternative superhero thing. They really explore what it takes to be a superhero. I'm looking at the quotes on IMDb right now, and one of the lines from Holy Avenger, he says, "All it takes to become a superhero is the choice to fight evil." Yeah. I don't know whether or not that's right or wrong. That's not the point, but they actually explore a little bit of that. Where the other films, you just see, people in extraordinary situations. And this film actually explores the concept of a hero a little bit more.
Yeah, well, especially because they go out of their way to establish that Frank is not a superhero. He does not have any special powers. He is totally, almost pathetically normal.
Yeah.
Though I think toward the
Infallible.
end of the movie, when he mounts that one-man, raid on Jacques' house, I think that's the kind of that's where you start to see more. But that actually worked for me better than something like Kick-Ass because you understood where this kind of persona was coming from, and the world was just heightened enough so that you could see it happening in this kind of world. It's not, for the most part, I think it is trying to have this kind of sense of realism. I think you see that with the handheld camera work, especially in a lot of the outdoor scenes. But that scene where he really, after the death of Libby, I think that's where you start to see him more as this kind of heightened, super heroic figure. But it worked for me in this environment that James Gunn created.
Yeah, I can see that. Should we talk about Libby now, or should we move off of that?
Yeah, let's go there.
Holy shit, Ellen Page.
Yeah.
What was she doing in between takes to get herself psyched up? It's one of those go for broke, totally balls to the wall, no holds barred performances that I always love watching.
And I wonder, it almost seemed to me too that I think the movie in general, not just with Ellen Page's character, but it does seem to be going for extreme. And I think it definitely goes, I think Ellen Page definitely goes there. I think she's really game. I just wonder if it's maybe it's a little too much. Like it gets to a point where you're kind of like, you're not quite sure where the bloodlust is just so extreme that you're kind of like, where is this exactly? Where is this coming from? Like, I wanted to see maybe a little more conscience from her, like make her a little more.
What is her function in the grand scheme of the movie? Like, why is she even there? Could the movie could have existed without a Bolty?
Yeah.
Or am I wrong?
To have a
because we like Ellen Page.
to have a really shocking rape scene.
Yeah.
Mark.
And what was the point of that, though? Like, to test his vows?
See, that's the question I'm asking. Like, that is the scene where I'm like, okay, this movie is going to a place, and I don't see a reason for it.
Yeah.
Other than being really uncomfortable.
See, I'm gonna try to justify some of the scenes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I knew, the rape scene really sticks out.
Another one is the death of the officer. Like, that's another one that comes out of left field that doesn't have any function in the movie at large.
Resolved. Like the police search for the Crimson Bolt and the possible ramifications of an investigating it getting killed. That's never touched back on. That's never resolved. That's never dangling.
Yeah, no. That's totally, that's where I think the movie is kind of like, trying to, it's, I guess the movie I think wants us to suspend our disbelief about it, but yeah, it's really noticeable. You're kind of like, look, I could actually understand the police being doubtful about the actual, whether this was actually kidnapping or not. I was like, okay, I can buy that. The fact that the law seems so out of sorts, like no one can figure out who this guy's is, that was, that's just kind of silly. And
well, especially because
or that they never ran his license plate.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no one got the license plate. He was parked there. His car parked there. People saw him coming out of the car. All right, I don't want to get into that.
Not just that. Not just that. When he beats up the guy who's butting in line, the guy says to him, "Dude, I know who you are. I just saw you."
Oh, that's fair though, because they have no way to really track down who that. Like, the guy didn't know his name or anything. He knows what he looked like. He could have probably reported his image to the police, but I mean, still though, the license plate. If anyone got the license plate to the car that was right there,
like, really? I mean.
And that happens like 5 times where his car is just right there and no one thinks to write down his plate.
Yeah. It's one of those, like, especially because the movie is trying to be normal or realistic in all other aspects.
Yeah.
It's one of those, like, okay, they should have found a way to have this story without introducing the law in certain ways where you either have to resolve it in order for your movie to make sense or you have to not have them there in the first place.
Right. Yeah. But to get back to that one scene we were talking about, I think we can call it the rape scene.
I think that's fair.
No, it is rape.
It is. Here's what I'll say about the way that it's played, though. There's this sense that you get, even before that scene happens, that Frank is very attractive to Libby. So that when she basically discovers that she's turned on by this whole superhero thing, I think he's trying to fight it in himself, which is why I think he partially lets it happen.
Mhm.
Which does that mean this is not rape? No. He flat out says no, so yeah, it is that.
Yeah.
But I think it does work in the sense of him wrestling with these feelings, especially because it's in opposition to his feelings for his wife, and specifically the binary system that he seems to operate on, where his wife is this, this really angelic figure who's been wronged, and everyone else is evil. And here,
and also a very clear sense
some
of
complications. And
also a very clear sense of there are some things that are right and there are some things that are wrong.
Yeah,
and this straddles the line between the two.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's why he went for this kind of, could he have accomplished it without these? Because he might have been able to accomplish it without this, but I don't think it's just there for no reason. I think it is there for a reason, because it is showing Frank's conflict, saying if he's able to, is he still holding to his mission? Which is why directly after that scene, when he sees the image of his wife in the toilet, in the vomit, that's immediately when he says we have to do this now, because it's his way of justifying it to himself and of running away from his feelings towards it. So I do think it worked in some ways. Did it have to be that extreme? I don't know. I think maybe it could have played a little differently, but that scene I'll justify.
Or maybe they weren't planning.
Yeah.
Maybe they weren't planning to do that at all. And Ellen Page just came on set that day and said, "All right, I know what we're gonna do with the scene."
I hope not.
I put my money on no, but
yeah, I'm guessing that was probably in the script. I don't know, but
no, it probably was. I'm joking because.
But that's how I'll justify I'll justify the Libby character in general. I think she is, because she really. And I think the other thing she does is she's the first one who really makes Crimson Bolt Frank realize what he's doing, and realize that this might not be wholly right.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see.
She's so much crazier than him.
Yeah.
And he starts to, when he sees her up against him, he's like, oh, maybe that's a little too far.
Yeah.
Especially the scene where they get those two thugs and she runs the car into the guy's body.
That's justified because he was about to,
Well, yeah.
But the scene before
But it's the sadism, I think, that I think he.
It's how she reacts. It's how she reacts to it.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's how I'll justify that, and we can debate though whether I wonder if there's something about her being the catalyst for him realizing what he's doing is not totally right. That it's a little. It does feel a little to me like a device. Like you can kind of see what Gunn's doing, as opposed to it being like her feeling like an actual character.
Yeah.
At least to me, I think he could have gone a little farther with her as a character, other than being this kind of. I guess when she assumes this identity, it's a way of putting on a new identity in all sense of that word.
Yeah.
We can also touch, I think, on the violence in this movie. The not just what's happening, but the implications behind what's happening. And I guess my question to you guys is, what do you think of that last scene with him? I think we touched upon it a little bit, but that last scene where Libby dies and he kind of goes full Rambo.
His plot armor immediately after her death was a little off.
Plot armor, I like that.
Where he's just like stands up, screams for like a minute long, and they're shooting and they can't hit him.
Shooting at him, he's a perfect.
Tosses the pipe bomb.
I've never seen a better example of plot armor than that second right there.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm not sure. Other than that, I really enjoyed that last scene. I guess where he's going ballistic into the. I love the confrontation between him and Jacques at the end, when their dialogue exchange, where he's talking about how Jacques talking about how you see things as good and evil, but there's not that simple, and he's like, the rules were set a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I think both are right. I think there are rules, that should never be broken. Butting in line, maybe not one of them, but and then Jacques' right too, where Jacques in the case with Sarah didn't necessarily do anything wrong. He didn't kidnap her. She came. I mean, that's up to interpretation. It's never really discussed.
Yeah.
But I got the feeling she fell back into her addiction, and Jacques was there supplying the addiction. So it was kind of mutual, but then you can argue whether or not that is mutual at all, since she wasn't in the right state of mind.
Yeah.
But again,
enough.
it's a gray area, and that's what he's saying. So
Yeah, and that's why I think the policeman shrugs him off, because it's kind of like he doesn't have any proof that she just went of her own volition. Right. Which, and I could buy that, definitely. But it is interesting, the ending with him saying, because he basically flat out says it at the after the whole ordeal at the Jock, that things wouldn't have happened if he hadn't acted.
She would never have found happiness. He would never have found happiness. Although Olivia would still also be alive, so.
And I could see that being problematic in some ways, because the accusation might be that the film is trying to justify everything he did. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think it's more like he's justifying it to himself in a way, but it doesn't change the fact that he realizes he's lost a lot, and he is.
I think he also realizes he went too far. I think he does.
Oh, yeah.
But he knows he had to get her back too. So he did right and wrong. I guess he found his own gray area.
Yeah, but it is still I felt that there were other ways that the movie could have maybe tried to tackle that or bring that into play.
Yeah.
Without going to such extremes, or if they did want to go to that kind of extreme, find a better way to introduce the conflicting nature of that and how that affects Frank, because we don't see him express. He really doesn't express regret.
Not overtly, anyway.
Yeah.
Not overtly. So there's.
In a sense, he kind of realizes he went too far because he doesn't do it anymore. You know what I mean? If he never felt like his actions were wrong, he would keep doing it because he would think they're right. But he clearly saw that they were wrong, or at least questionable.
Yeah.
So he had regret in that sense.
And I think also, even though the fact that he does kill Jacques, and not just kill him, but basically kill him in a pretty nasty way.
Yeah.
I think the fact that comes only comes after the death of Libby. So I think he recognizes that part was not in keeping with his earlier, even though the things he was doing before that were not justifiable at all. I think he realizes that there was this part of him, and now he's trying to keep it at bay.
Yeah.
Which I guess is one of the reasons why Sarah, his wife, leaves him at the end of all this, which was really, I did like that touch. As tragic as it might be, it's I think he realizes that it was all for the better. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, but I still felt that there were other ways they could have tackled that, like.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it almost tries to the film almost tries too hard to make everything resolve in a happy manner, and that's partly involved in the fact that we don't really see any real world ramifications for what he did. Like, as I said earlier, he's apparently able to go back to his normal home and his normal job with his normal car with no legal ramifications.
Yeah, there was no investigation or anything.
And that's the part where I was like, okay. I like what they're trying to do, but I felt if they'd done it in a way that did not require there to be some resolution for those plot threads, it would have been more effective.
But if you look at it from the point of view as just I guess a character drama, I think it succeeds then. Where you're just looking at the development of a character, what he learns, what he doesn't learn. And I think that's what this movie was, I don't know if it was necessarily meant to be a real story like Unbreakable was. It was really just an insight into a particular type of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And on that aspect, I think it succeeded. Now, that said, there are still a lot of, if you do look at it from a different perspective, there, like Justin saying, the investigations or the license plate issue.
Yeah. Which the reason I bring that up is because the film does seem to be quite a bit trying to establish a sense of realism.
Yeah.
And I guess it takes you out when there's kind of like a selective realism. I don't mean the comic book touches. I mean the scenes where it seems like they're trying to establish some kind of realistic violence, and then the rest of the world doesn't really follow, where it's like the police are apparently extremely incompetent and can't find this guy who doesn't do a really good job at hiding anything he's doing. Again, it takes you out of the movie.
Closet? There's a dog in there.
Yeah. I'm still kind of wrestling with this movie. I think Rainn Wilson is really good, and I think he's worth it alone for this movie. I think he really brings a sense of, even though he's kind of an exaggerated character, you do feel like he exists in some form.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people could probably relate to
I
him.
love the scenes where he's praying. I think he really nails those scenes.
You know what I like about those scenes?
Yeah, they're it's like a little bit pathetic, but you kind of feel for the guy. Like,
Do we think
but it also delves? They're also very philosophical scenes where they delve into the whole. You know, we have a lot of these movies where people do stuff like this because they feel that they are called to do so. They feel like they are called to do this by God or by a higher power. But those scenes delve into the question of, okay, you can never really be sure if it's God telling you to do these things or just yourself, your own subconscious, pointing you in that direction. You know, like where he says,
did you say that or did I say that?
Where he's like, what? Throw everything away? Wait, are you telling me to throw everything away, or am I telling myself to throw everything away? Like in the midst of praying, he acknowledges, like, I think God is telling me to do this, or you could interpret it as, I think that my sense of morality is telling me to do this, but maybe it's just me, and I'm the only person responsible for all this. Yeah. Like, he does wrestle with that, which you don't see a lot. You don't see a lot of people trying to be superheroes wrestling with that. Okay, am I doing this because I believe that there is some higher moral order that I'm serving, or am I really just doing this because I want to do it? Period. End of sentence.
Do we think Frank should see a psychiatrist?
Yes.
Yes.
Because he has some serious problems and potentially like schizophrenia.
Notice when before he's touched by God, one of the tentacles batters up a corn dog with his brain.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yep.
Oh, that's funny. Dog. I thought it was like a roller, like spreading some kind of juice on his brain or something.
That's what I thought it was.
He's saying it's a corn dog.
I like that. I love the fact that was his version of being touched by God. It was like this combining the really strange television programs that he was watching, have like the tentacle hentai scene, which was really disturbing, and I was just like, what? Why is that that's on a channel? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But I love how that comes into his
was really desperate to bring back people from DirecTV.
Like, that was the channel he left it on? Is that what the implication is? It's just like, what's going on there? But then he's like freaked out by it. So yeah, but it's interesting how those things combine so that you're really unsettled when God appears. It's almost like, you feel like it's almost like a combination of those really cheesy, like that really cheesy Christian Network that he was watching, and like a little bit of David Cronenberg in that scene, in the dream sequence he has.
Speaking of that Christian show, I think we can all agree we need more Nathan Fillion in our lives.
I have to say, I wonder what Nathan Fillion's expression was when they showed him the design for his costume. Because holy shit, man.
Yeah, really.
I mean,
by the way,
someone who has a really great sense of humor about himself.
Yeah.
Considering what he's played and based on what I've seen from him in interviews.
Yeah, he's a great down-to-earth guy.
I just want to say, can we say Nathan Fillion, not just, first of all, he's a great leading man. We've seen that. But then to do like a role like this, and also in Much Ado About Nothing, he's a great character actor too.
Oh yeah.
I wish he were in more things.
Absolutely. I need him in everything.
Yeah. The world would be a better place.
I've been showing my girlfriend Firefly, and she's really enjoying it.
Yeah. Good. So we got about like 3 minutes left. Do you want to take us out with anything in particular? Talk about whether or not he is a superhero or not?
I think that's a fair question to end on. I think a lot with Darkman or The Crow, he's more of an anti-hero because you can understand his motivations, but it's really hard to like justify a lot of the specific of what he does. Especially since I like the fact that unlike with Darkman and Crow, we see him openly struggle with this. And I do, a lot like with Bruce Willis and Unbreakable, I do appreciate them devoting time for that within the movie. But at the same time, I would say he was more of an anti-hero for kind of going down that path that you can understand, but you can't necessarily say, like, yes, good for you for doing all of that.
Yeah. You know, it's funny that question as you were talking about that, Noah. It's the thing that I do like about this movie and the way it treats what it means to be a superhero is, I think in a lot of superhero movies, the way that violence is played is it's played almost like as, it depends on the movie, but there's a sense of there's a sense of fun, there's of having action, of having like the hero showing what he can do. And I think the actual consequences of violence in those kinds of movies, especially in I would say in Marvel movies, I would say in a lot of even the Batman movies, there's a sense of, even though there is violence happening, there's a sense you get with certain kinds of violence that it's okay, that it's justified, and you don't really see what does it really mean? What does it really mean to be a superhero who beats up other people? And I think with this movie, might be commenting on that kind of approach to violence, because here none of the violence is pleasant at all. That's what superheroes do. That is something that is a extremely consistent thing we see with superheroes. Violence is part of what they do. And there's a sense of it being justified because they are superheroes. And here we're starting to see that even in cases where it might be justified, which, well, to be perfectly honest, not that many instances of that, but you do see how unpleasant it is, and the amount of blood we see, I think, is probably
one of the most visceral scenes in that aspect is when he hits the guy in the head with the wrench for butting in line, and you see his skin just like crack open. Yeah, that's gonna be with me for a while. So you're absolutely right.
Or again, like with the one fight in Unbreakable, that is a very realistic fight. No style about it. It's just a struggle.
Yeah. So do I think he's a superhero? See, I'm struggling with all of these, except for Mystery Man. I'm struggling with all of them because none of they're all doing. You see them in one moment doing something heroic, probably super heroic, but then after that they just retire. Like, to me, a superhero is someone who's going to be consistently doing the heroic things. And sure, he does a heroic thing in saving Sarah, absolutely. But beyond that, can you describe him as a superhero? I'm gonna just shrug. So we'll talk about it more, I guess, in our recap.
Okay.
All right then. Thanks again for joining us, guys. We are the Cinema Joes. Hopefully sooner rather than later, probably by the time this comes out, because it'll be 6 weeks from now, I'll have a website that you guys can check us out on, and all of our past podcasts/videos, and maybe even some blog posts. So check us out there, cinemajoes.com, and have a good one.
Bye.